Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Hi everyone, this is Sue at 1A Auto, and today we're working on our 2007 Mazda 6 sedan, and we're installing the forward control arm ball joint. If you need this part or any other part for your vehicle, click on the link below or head on over to 1aauto.com. So we're going to start by removing the wheel. I have it partially on the ground so I can break the lug nut free. It's a 21mm socket. I got my 1/2-inch breaker bar. All right, so now that those are broken free and I can turn them by hand, I'm going to raise my vehicle. I have a 2-post lift. If you have a floor jack and jack stands, you do the same thing. So now with the car up in the air, we're going to remove the lug nuts and set them aside. Perfect. It's frozen on there. And this happens quite often when you have an aluminum rim with a steel front end. Obviously the steel and the aluminum, they oxidize together. So I'm going to show you how to take this wheel off safely. A lot of people don't think about this. I know I didn't the first couple of times I did it. Take a lug nut and just put it back on by hand. Not all the way, halfway. And now when you take your rubber mallet or your pry bar and you hit it from the other side, it doesn't fly off. I take a rubber mallet and I hit the rubber part of the tire on the back side. That came off nice and easy. Sometimes they don't want to come off that easy, and you just got to keep giving it an effort back and forth. Now we can remove that lug nut and dismount the tire. We're going to remove the forward control arm with ball joint. Now I've taken the brakes off, which you do not have to do either one of these control arms with the ball joint. I took the brakes off because I'm going to be doing a video on a bearing press. I'm going to start by removing the ball joint nut into the knuckle. This is a 24mm socket or 15/16 if you have standard. 15/16 has a little wobble to it, but it will work if you don't have the metric. So this is usually pretty on there, real strong. So I've got my longest ratchet, 1/2-inch ratchet, and I'm going to use a piece of steel that we have just to get some leverage, and I'm going to break that free. You can use air tools if you have air tools. Now that I've removed the ball joint nut, I'm going to move on to the lower strut wishbone bolt that goes straight through in a nut. The nut has a clip on it that bottoms it out, so you don't need to use a wrench. It's this 15mm socket. Okay, so now we're going to move inward to the subframe and remove this long and gated bolt that goes into the subframe. There's a welded nut. It's already fitted in there. It won't come out, and that's the way it's supposed to be designed. This is a 15mm socket. You're going to have to use a nice 1/2-inch breaker bar or ratchet just to break that free. When jacking this up, if you used a jack and jack stands, it's always helps to remember what you are working on and where you're working. So if I was to set this up on jack stands, I definitely wouldn't set the jack stand here because that would have obstructed my access to that. So you do have points in the front of the frame, which would be a nice strong point up in here. So you still have access to everything in the swing of a hammer. And I'm going to hammer this out. I'm going to try without a pickle fork, which is a ball joint tool, so you see it, and if it pops out, fabulous. If not, we might have to move on to a pickle fork. So I'm going to give it a good, strong hit right here on the knuckle to hopefully vibrate the ball joint stud loose. All right, that's good enough for me to know that it's not going to jolt free, so I have to move on to the pickle fork. So this is what they call a ball joint fork or a pickle fork, and see how it has the wedge to it? So I'm going to guide it in there and it should wedge in there and split the ball joint from the knuckle. I'm just going to give it a quick spray, see if I can help things along a little bit. Wonderful. This is the spacer that I'm talking about that comes with this style front end, and it goes into the knuckle, and sometimes it will come out with the actual stud on the ball joint. In this case, I lucked out and the ball joint actually popped out of it. So that is a great favor. Hope that works for you, because you can leave this pressed in because you have to replace it back into the knuckle for the new ball joint. It does not come with this. I'll end up taking a brass punch and hammer and hitting this down flush, and I hope it worked like that for you at home. If not, if this comes out with the actual stud of the ball joint, you have to go to a machine shop because that's pressed on. They have to press it off for you. But now let's remove the forward control arm, now that that is out of the way. If you saw that, I just pulled right out. Now this is what actually went bad on this ball joint control arm. That inner bushing is ripped around. So with a front end check, we felt the play and knew that that inner bushing was torn. You don't replace just the bushing, you replace the whole ball joint. Now I'm going to use my brass punch and a hammer to put that piece back into the knuckle. And I've soaked it quite a bit, so hopefully this will work without a press, like a ball joint press. That's it. Here we have the forward lower control arm with the ball joint connected. This is the part from 1aauto.com, and this is the original part that came out factory. Bushings, ball joint, nice sealed boot with a nice lock clip that goes all the way around. That ring is locked in. Self-greased. The rear bushing, you can see the reason for it. Factory bushing. These are the same weight, same length. Great product. So head on over to 1aauto.com if you need this part or any other part for your car. Now we're going to install the center or forward control arm ball joint, and I'm going to guide it into the subframe, bring it up, install the ball joint stud first, and then I can put my mounting bolt through the subframe. Here we go. Just going to hand start that. So now I'm going to install the lower strut wishbone mounting bolt into the center bushing. This is that one with the self-locking nut because it has that metal clip on it. So if the bolt is going to spin clockwise, I'm going to want this to go this way and bottom out on the upper strut wishbone part. This is a 15mm bolt, so we're going to snug that up before we torque it. Now we're going to install the ball joints to the knuckle lock nuts. And for the front one, I'm reusing the old nut, and I have added some blue thread lock on it. Now I can snug these down and torque them to spec. This is a 24mm socket or a 15/16 standard. I've snugged down my two mounting bolts on the ball joint, and both of them are 147 foot-pound torque. Now I'm torquing my wishbone lower strut mount to the control arm, 85 foot-pounds, 15mm socket. So now we're going to torque the inner, center, or forward control arm bolt on the subframe. It's a 15mm socket, and the torque is 93 foot-pounds. So now I'm just going to remount my tire, put it up against the hub, put my lug nuts on, hand tight. I'm just going to hand tighten them with my socket. Then I'm going to lower it down on the ground, and I'm going to torque these to 83 foot-pounds. So now I'm going to torque my wheels at 83 foot-pounds in a star pattern. That just helps make sure that the seat of the rim is seated correctly against the hub. Double check it real quick. There you go.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.